The next article I wanted to talk about is titled, Josh Duggar Faces 40 Years in Jail for Receiving and Possessing. This is going to be a hard video to keep monetized, if I even do. I may not even be able to keep it monetized. I am going to do my best, though, because I want my stuff to be child-friendly anyways for the most part, because, you know, I have kids who listen to my streams sometimes, so I want it to be mostly child-friendly. This is written by Hemant Mehta on the Friendly Atheist website. It was written on April 30th, 2021, so it's a little bit old, but there are new articles just came out about this situation, and I want to read those, but I want to give you a little bit of a primer on the situation first so you understand exactly what happened, and then we'll get into the new stuff. So with that being said, let's take a look at this article and see what Hemant Mehta had to say about it. This is an update at the very top of the page. This site's headline originally said Josh Duggar faced 20 years in prison. In fact, it's 20 years for each count, 40 years total. It wasn't about a shady real estate deal or tax fraud after all. As we suspected, we didn't know why the dude was arrested. All we heard was that there was a warrant out for his arrest and he went to clear it up and he was put in jail. In fact, I believe this is his mugshot on screen right here. Josh Duggar, the Christian reality TV star best known for his younger sisters, was arrested yesterday for exactly the reason everyone feared: receipt and possession of. According to the indictment released publicly today, a grand jury agreed that Duggar in 2019 knowingly possessed material that contained images of, which I'll refer to going forward as CP. Duggar faces up to 40 years in prison, or as some on Twitter wryly joked, 19 years and counting. Because the name of the show he was on was 19 Kids and Counting. That's actually pretty clever. He pleaded not guilty to both charges. The family responded with a short statement to Us Weekly that doesn't deny anything. Quote, "The accusations brought against Joshua today are very serious. It is our prayer that the truth, no matter what it is, will come to light, and that this will all be resolved within a timely manner. We love Josh and Anna and continue to pray for their family." Interesting. They actually know exactly what the truth is. Josh Duggar was actually caught doing things when he lived in the house with his little sisters. They knew what was going on this whole time. They know. Don't let them fool you into thinking they didn't. This is Hemant Mehta. I should point out that while the Department of Justice's tweet pointing to the charges remains up, the press release with the details has been taken down from their website. It's not clear why. Making matters even worse, we learned last week that Duggar was expecting his 7th child with his wife, Anna. I feel bad for Anna, honestly, and I'll tell you why. That's the gist of the story, basically. The dude was arrested for having CP on his computer. Let me give you a little bit more information on this. He's been known to look at his wife knew that he was doing that. I don't know if it was the CP variety or the normal variety, but either way, his wife knew that he had a problem with this. So what she did was she had him install a program called, I don't remember the name of the program now, but it's some Christian computer program that basically lets your spouse or some trusted person see exactly what you're doing on the computer at all times. Anytime they want, they can pull up what you're doing on the computer, and it sends them screenshots, random moments of your computer use. So they had that installed on this computer that he was using for all this stuff, right? But it turns out Josh Duggar had partitioned the hard drive. He had a Linux partition on half the hard drive and a Windows partition on the other half. So he had 2 different operating systems installed, and the one that had Windows had the program, that Christian program that sends screenshots and alerts and stuff to your significant other about your computer use. The Linux half of the hard drive didn't have that program installed, so he was getting on the Linux partition and looking at whatever he wanted. So not only was he doing this stuff, but also it was planned and specific, and he knew exactly what he was doing. He created a plan and he executed that plan. So there was an updated article came out on the Friendly Atheist website written by Hemant Mehta. This came out August 22nd, 2021. The title is Josh Duggar Tries Getting Charges Against Him Dropped by Blaming Donald Trump. Gotta love it. Let's read the article and see what it says. You may recall that conservative activist and former Family Research Council staffer Joshua Duggar was arrested earlier this year on charges of receiving and possessing CP. He faces decades in prison. The trial will begin in November, which isn't far off, so I'll probably end up covering this again soon. But his attorney is already trying to get the entire case tossed out on the grounds that the federal investigation into his alleged crimes was illegal because the people in charge of the Department of Homeland Security at the time were unlawfully appointed by then-President Donald Trump. Wow! Adam Klasfeld of Law and Crime explains, quote, the Government Accountability Office later found that Trump appointed both men unlawfully, circumventing the normal process of congressional approval. Federal judges later ruled similarly, invalidating some of the agency's actions under their control. This is Hemant Mehta again. None of that means the investigation itself was a problem. Duggar is trying to get off on some technicality, hoping everyone will just avoid the actual substance of what he did. By his logic, no investigations that occurred in the final year of Trump's term should count, even if those investigations had nothing to do with the appointees in question. Now, you know what I think? I think what's happening here is Josh Duggar realizes just how completely and totally fucked he is in this situation and has literally no choice in this matter, no other option but to take the long shot and try to get it tossed out on this. This is obviously frivolous and ridiculous, but it's his only hope to get out of 40 years in prison, basically. I'll tell you what happened, actually, how they discovered this in the first place. The different bureaus of the government have basically flagged certain videos, certain images, and things like that. They've inserted basically little alerts so that when this is downloaded from somewhere, it sends the bureaus an alert, like the FBI or the NSA or, investigators anyways. It sends the investigators these alerts to let them know, hey, somebody just downloaded this and now they're in possession of this illegal thing. And that's exactly what happened. Josh Duggar downloaded multiple things, multiple videos and images and things that had been flagged by some investigators as illegal. And they started investigating, traced it back to that computer that he had at his office. They went in, executed a search warrant, grabbed the computer, searched it, and sure enough, found the stuff on it. Found the images and videos. Dude is guilty as they come. There's no getting out of this. He is so completely and totally fucked that his only chance of getting out of this is to claim some technicality about Donald Trump not having the right to appoint certain judges or whatever else in this case. That was his only chance. And it's as ridiculous as it sounds. Not going to stand up. So that brings us to the latest information in this whole fiasco. This is on abcnews.go.com. The title is Judge Refuses to Suppress Video Evidence in Josh Duggar Case. This was written by the Associated Press on October 19th, 2021. The subtitle is A Federal Judge has denied motions to suppress video evidence found on the electronic devices seized from former reality TV star Josh Duggar, who's facing CP charges. Pretty big fucking deal. Fayetteville, Arkansas. A federal judge has denied motions to suppress video evidence found on electronic devices that were seized from former reality TV star Josh Duggar, who's facing CP charges. U.S. District Judge Timothy L. Brooks also said Monday that a hearing on the motions isn't warranted, according to the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. Duggar, who appeared in TLC's 19 Kids and Counting, was charged in April with 2 counts of downloading and possessing CP. Duggar's attorneys argued the evidence in the case had become stale because so much time had elapsed between federal agents downloading files from the seized devices and the issuance of a search warrant. Brooks said courts have found on numerous occasions that evidence in CP cases doesn't become stale even when files were downloaded many months before search warrants were issued. Brooks said investigators did not take too long to examine the electronic devices, noting such searches are complicated and can take a while. Mr. Duggar cannot show he was prejudiced by any delay. The devices remained in law enforcement's safekeeping throughout this time period, and the probable cause warranting the initial seizure of the devices remained viable through the date of indictment, Brooks said. Duggar, 33. Wow, dude's my age. That's crazy. Duggar, 33, faces up to 20 years in prison and fines of up to $250,000 on each count if convicted. Remember, there were 2 counts. So he's looking at 40 years in prison and $500,000. The money, he's got that. He can pay $500,000 easy, I imagine. But 40 years of your life? He deserves it, though. I have to say, he deserves it. He had this coming. He needs to face the consequences for his actions. You know, in an ideal world, we wouldn't have prisons, in my opinion. In an ideal world, we would have rehab centers, which would basically rehabilitate criminals, get them back on their feet, and find some way to guarantee they're not going to reoffend, and then send them back out into society. In my opinion, I think the goal of prison should always be to rehabilitate. Even if it's not possible in some cases, we have to give the person the benefit of the doubt and assume that it is possible in their case. But in Josh Duggar's situation, he's been caught up in this multiple times. His parents knew things were going on when he was living there with his sisters on at least 3 separate occasions, from my understanding. No, I'm sorry, 5 different occasions. On at least 5 separate occasions, he was caught up in this whole thing, and his parents knew about it when he was younger. This has been an ongoing issue since he was a teenager. So none of this surprises me, and I am hard-pressed to believe that it's even possible to rehabilitate him after this whole situation. Let me just finish this article real quick. Brooks set the jury trial for November 30th. We'll be revisiting this story after that. TLC pulled 19 Kids and Counting in 2015 over revelations that Duggar had 4 of his sisters and a babysitter. Duggar's parents said he confessed to the and apologized. Doesn't make it okay. Don't give a shit if you apologized or not. Duggar has also apologized for his addiction and for cheating on his wife. Jesus fucking Christ, dude. Let me tell you a little bit about how the court system works. He has 20 years for each count, so that's a total of 40 years, right? He'll most likely get a little bit less because this is the maximum. He faces up to 20 years in prison for each. I'm guessing he's probably going to face 10 or 15 years total. Let's say 15 years. There is a possibility that he can serve the years concurrently rather than consecutively, which means instead of serving 20 years for the first offense and then serving 20 more years for the second offense, he could serve both of them at the same time. So he gets a total of 20 years, 1 for each count total. That's a possibility. It's unlikely. It will almost certainly be consecutive. But like I said, that's a maximum sentence. I'm guessing he's probably going to serve 15 years each. That would be my guess, for a total of 30 years, most likely. Again, I could be completely talking out my ass here. I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens at his sentencing. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, he gets 30 years, right? He's sentenced to 30 years. Typically, in most situations, he's eligible for parole after half that time. So he can serve 15 years in prison, and then he gets out and serves parole outside of prison for the following 15 years. In an ideal world, he would serve the whole 40 in prison because I don't really want this guy out of prison until he's 73, which is how old he would be if he did serve the full 40. But more than likely, he'll probably actually be out of prison by the time he's 50, I'm guessing. We'll have to wait and see what happens. And like I said, we're going to revisit this after his trial and after his sentencing, see how it went. Hope for the best. Of course, the best meaning he spends as much time in jail as possible.